Hello guys, welcome to another episode of the show. In today's episode I'm going to talk about TV shows which include psychologists and psychologists who are goofing around on TV. Let's go! Hello once again. Today I'm having a day where I will complain about everything. Like those two old men in the Muppets. Do you remember them? Those two grumpy critics who sat on a balcony and complained about everything. So this is me today. And since I recently came across an advertisement for the new season of Married at First Sight, I've decided to vent my frustrations about it. And before I get into the point, I completely understand people who enjoy the so-called trash TV format, which aims to spark curiosity and emotions while being utterly mind-numbing. And everyone sometimes needs to engage in such activities. Some enjoy shows like Hotel Paradise or Married at First Sight, while others prefer movies like Sharknado or Tsunami Zombie or something like this. Others enjoy silly video games. For instance, I can stick to my PlayStation for hours, which is absolutely unproductive but quite relaxing. So I don't criticize viewers at all, just the format of the show itself. And this is actually one of the programs we watched with students during classes to clearly illustrate all the things one should not do as a psychologist. And I must tell you that I am naturally a patient person and have a high tolerance for many things. But when I see psychologists making total fools of themselves on television, I feel apoplexy coming on. No, seriously. Because then people watch this and rightly say that if they have to listen to such nonsense for at the very least $100, they would rather not have such help. And I understand them, because if I had an image of a psychologist like in these shows, I wouldn't even go for an initial consultation. And regarding the format itself, for those who have never watched this program, it invites lonely individuals, those who have never been in a formal relationship, or those who are currently single but seeking companionship. And the idea is that so-called specialists, usually psychologists or sociologists or sometimes anthropologists, depending on the country, they create 3 couples from all applicants based on conversations, interviews, and various surveys. And these couples meet only on their wedding day. And then they have 30 days, so a month, to get to know each other and decide whether to stay married or file for divorce after those 30 days. And aside from the substantive criticism I'll mention shortly, it seems somewhat frivolous in countries where marriage is considered sacred and valuable, because still there are countries like this where even introducing civil partnership might shake the institution's seriousness. It feels a bit off-putting to think about playing at marriage for television while a significant group of people lacks the right. So it's akin to taking a hungry person on a tour of a kitchen and saying, no, now we'll show you how food is made, but you can't touch anything. So it just doesn't feel right to me. As for the program's format, 3 specialists conduct interviews and give people service to find the ideal partner. And my brief comment on this is bullshit. There are no surveys that can achieve this. A longer comment would be that while research on relationships exists, And there are quite a few studies. New research is still being conducted. And if you have come across invitations to such projects, you usually find that they seek individuals who have been in a relationship for at least 6 months, or for at least 8 months, for at least a couple of months. And this is because studies on close relationships lasting only 2 weeks yield no meaningful conclusions. The first few weeks of knowing someone are what we colloquially call the relationship high. During this early stage, we walk through life on a heart-shaped island where our new partner seems like the embodiment of love itself, an ideal we've never encountered before. And this phenomenon relates to how our brain chemistry works. In the early stages of love, when we are still falling in love, we are still enchanted by the person, our brain temporarily goes haywire, causing us to overlook red flags. And returning to research, to understand how people pair up regarding personality traits, age, profession, beliefs, worldview, openness to experience, etc., we need them in studies once they are somewhat stabilized in their relationships. And moreover, there are numerous characteristics, what we would call confounding variables, that we cannot capture in such studies. For example, preferences regarding humor, gestures, or scent, or leisure activities, laughter styles, voice tones. You can list endlessly. For two people to form a relationship, all these elements must somehow click together. They may click for a moment or for 2 nights, but later realize something trivial bothers them. But generally speaking, something must simply resonate at first. And all studies conducted on relationships aim to understand how pairing mechanisms work best. However, our current state of knowledge does not allow us to predict outcomes. Based on existing research, we know people's histories, but we cannot foresee future relationships due to insufficient data and due to too many additional characteristics influencing how we form bonds. Thus, the promise that we can match people based on a few surveys is simply nonsense. By the same logic, I could take 2 tarot decks and randomly deal cards to individuals and claim those who draw matching cards will be compatible. And I would even venture to say my selections might be just as accurate, or perhaps even more so, than pairs chosen by so-called experts. And furthermore, during ethics classes, we always discussed how much psychologists can publicly discuss another person's emotional or mental state. And of course, for educational purposes, during conferences or supervision sessions, we sometimes discuss patient examples. However, these cases are always so anonymized that even the patient themselves wouldn't recognize their story. However, in this program, experts shamelessly discuss participants' emotional deficits and communication issues alongside their problematic relationships with parents. There is absolutely no anonymity since we see these people's faces in every episode. We know where they're from, where they work, what their families look like, and so on. And while I understand that participants consent fully to take part in such a format, if someone came to me saying that they consented to be shot and dismembered, well, it doesn't really mean everything would be fine if I proceeded with it. Well, the same principle applies here. Just because a client or participant agrees doesn't absolve a psychologist from adhering to fundamental professional ethics. And as far as I'm aware, in these new editions of the show, They probably don't reveal what these individuals said during interviews of or how they filled out the questionnaires. But in the first edition and in other countries' versions, without any doubt, they referenced what each person said and their questionnaire results, along with sexual preferences and other such details. And while I can somewhat accept that participants agreed to label their emotions publicly during filming, there is absolutely no consent for disclosing data from surveys and questionnaires conducted by psychologists. And conversations with psychologists are bound by complete professional confidentiality. And this means that even when clients consent to disclose their survey's results, the psychologist cannot do so except in court situations involving two expert psychologists, where one may share results with another qualified expert only. And even defense attorneys or prosecutors requesting access typically will not receive such information, because only those with appropriate qualifications should access it, and certainly not public opinion. And finally, and this lingers in my mind whenever I think about this format, I constantly consider the unspoken message conveyed by this team of specialists to participants. Notice what these individuals say when inviting loved ones to their weddings. There's always the sacramental phrase, "The psychologists found me my ideal candidate for a wife or for a husband." And at this moment, I break into a sweat, because look at what this message conveys. Psychologists found me my ideal candidate. Thus, we're heading toward potential divorce. Even with this perfectly matched candidate, I cannot establish a relationship, meaning something must be very seriously wrong with me. Well, this interpretation may be far-reaching on my part. However, it is always a risk we must consider. I know participants can consult with psychologists and receive support, and not everything is shown to viewers. But still, personally, I feel strongly that psychologists' appearance in such programs do not strengthen their position as trusted professionals, a profession defined by high qualifications, both ethically and morally. And all this fun occurs at the expense of participants who sincerely trusted that specialists genuinely possess tools and would use them effectively to match them with partners. So, in conclusion, I know that people like such formats, and I do not blame the viewers. And technically, I also do not blame the producers of the show, because people watch it, so they produce it. But people I do blame are the psychologists, who are just making fool of themselves on TV. So, whenever you watch a show like this, I hope you are watching more ambitious productions. But anyway, at least if you are watching this program, now you'll scrutinize more critically the experts involved. Thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, take care.